So normal responses will vary from person to person and from incident to incident. So two people can go through the same thing and have very different reactions. It's not because one is weak and one is strong, it's because they are different personalities, they're different people, they have different experiences, different belief systems. And sometimes what zings one this time is going to zing the other one the next time. I've seen it happen time and time again with police partners and things like that. One will get a hit, the other one doesn't, and then next time around, you know, somebody else gets clipped. And from incident to incident. So you can see the same stuff day in and day out, and it doesn't bother you, and then one day it does. And nobody really knows why this is. It's the mysteries of the human mind, right? I mean, we're fragile little things, we are. So nobody understands exactly how it works, but it does work that way. And you get about mid-career and you're thinking, yeah, I've been there, done that, I've seen it all, ain't nothing gonna bother me anymore. You know, you get a little arrogant and cocky. And then something happens and bam! And you're like, wow, where'd that come from? And that's exactly how it happens. You just don't see it coming. Normal symptoms or normal responses vary in their intensity and in the order or combination of symptoms. So on your course pack handouts there on page 33 and 34, there's a list of symptoms. So that's where we're going to go right now. We're going to start with the initial responses. So this is what's going to happen during the event and immediately after, and it's nothing more than adrenaline. We talked about what adrenaline does to your body and to your mind. And that's all that's going on here. You're having a huge adrenaline dump and the adrenaline's doing its thing. So don't freak out. And some people do. If they don't understand what adrenaline does to the human body and the human mind, they freak out when this stuff happens to them. Perceptual distortions are really common. So usually during the event, it's your mind going into survival mode, just trying to make sense of what's going on. So it could be stuff like diminished sounds, tunnel vision, slow motion. Those are some of the most common ones. So I'm going to jump to your handout there. That's page 35 for you. We're going to jump there for a minute. And look at these perceptual distortions. So Dr. Artwall did some research with police officers. She interviewed 100 police officers who had very major critical incidents, and she asked them what perceptual distortions they had. And this is what came back. 86% report diminished sounds. It's that the sounds were far away or muffled or they didn't even hear them. Now, who are my deer hunters in here? See? Now, how many deer hunters have ever had the deer in the sights, you pull the trigger, and you don't hear the shot? You don't feel the recoil. Now, if you're in a target range, it's different, isn't it? Even with hearing protection on, the shot is very loud, and you know your shoulder goes back into the next county. But when you're in real life, because you got adrenaline cranking, even though you're hunting a deer and the deer's not trying to kill you or anything, but you still got adrenaline cranking, right? You've gone into hunter mode. Tunnel vision. The little caveman in you that says, let's survive, says, all of this stuff on the side's not important, let's focus right here. Very, very common. So probably when you were deer hunting, the same thing happened. You know, the bird in the tree over here and the cow in the field over there and all this other stuff, because you're right here. You're intensely focused on what you're doing. You're going to go on autopilot because we have trained you to do so. So you will default to your training, whatever that is. And you're just going to act without giving any thought. Heightened visual clarity, look at there. 70% report that they were able to see a lot of detail, a lot of little teeny stuff that they wouldn't normally notice. Slow motion time, 63% experience slow motion time. So everything just seems to slow down and it runs in slow motion. It's your brain just trying to process everything that's going on. Now I've had events where it went all slow-mo on me. And when I think about them today, when I play them back in my head now, they still play in slow motion. Who knows? Look at here. Remember what we said about memory loss? How memory loss is a major indicator of stress and stress levels. Memory loss for parts of the event, memory loss for some of your actions. There you go. So it's good that we're learning about this, because what would happen before is, a police officer would be involved in an incident and they would write their report, and then a day or 2 or 3 later a whole bunch of stuff starts coming back, which would be normal, and so they would write a supplemental report, and then they get into court and the defense attorney's like, well, okay, officer, which is it? Why didn't you put this in your initial report? What's wrong with you? Are you lying? Were you lying here? Were you lying there? And now we're learning, this is the nature of the human mind. And it's also important to know as a police officer when you're dealing with a victim of a violent crime as well. Because the same thing's going to happen. You're going to take an initial statement and, the next day, 2 days, a week later, that victim's going to remember a lot more stuff. So you always want to do a follow-up with a victim because more memory is going to come back. They're going to remember more things. Disassociation. It's almost like you're watching a movie, but you're in it, but you're outside of you. And everything's just kind of detached, and it's very, very weird when that happens. Intrusive, distracting thoughts. You have thoughts that aren't relevant to the situation, to the tactics of what's going on. Funniest one that ever happened to me was we were in a roll around trying to get a bad guy under control, get some handcuffs on him. There's 3 of us rolling around. This guy's fighting us tooth and nail. And in the middle of all of this, my grocery list pops into my head. Gosh, did I put on my grocery list? Like, really? Now you're thinking about your grocery list? Let's get your mind back in the game here, kid. False memory. Our memories, we're kind of hardwired to do this. We remember things that didn't happen. Because when things don't make sense and everything's in chaos, your brain works like autocorrect on your phone. It fills in the blanks with what it thinks is supposed to be there. And that's exactly what's going on in your brain, too. So what you see is you heard, saw, or experienced something that you found out later that didn't really happen. Because there's a gap in the action. Your brain's missing something, so it goes, oh, okay, autocorrect, and it fills something in. And that something might not be the right thing. Now, some officers reported, instead of slow-mo, they reported fast motion time. I personally have never experienced that. I think it would be very strange. But of course, slow-mo is too. Intensified sounds, instead of diminished sounds, intensified sounds. And last but not least, 9% reported for a few brief seconds they were paralyzed. It took them a couple, to engage. So again, all adrenaline. Other reactions may occur immediately after. And this is from the adrenaline or the adrenaline now washing out of you. So you may feel like you're in shock. Confusion, denial. And these usually all kind of go together. Is the what the hell, oh my God, no. You give a death notification to somebody, almost always the first thing out of their mouth is no. No, that can't be right. And if you've ever gotten bad news or seen something awful yourself, that's probably the first place you're going to go to because it's too big. And you go, no, nope, we're not going there. I'm not going to deal with this right now. Nope, didn't happen. And then you shut down. You feel numb because it's too big, so you just shut down your emotions to protect yourself. And here is where the adrenaline comes washing out of you. Right? Extreme fatigue. It's just like, ugh. Difficulty walking, extreme shakiness. Right? Your legs turn to rubber. And you're shaking like a leaf. Remember, we diverted your blood supply from your extremities to your core. So now your fine motor skills are all impaired. That's what causes that. And of course now nausea, vomiting. You've got this lump of lead laying in the bottom of your belly because your digestive processes have stopped. And the caveman inside of you says, hey, we need to lighten up the load, dude. Blech. The first 48 to 72 hours are the most intense. For about the first 24, most people are usually kind of on autopilot. It's there, it's banging in there, but it's banging out again. Your brain doesn't want to lock onto it. Your head can't really wrap itself around what's happened yet. So it's going ping, 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 but it's not really seating right now. And it takes around the 48 hours for it to really hit you hard and go, oh my God, and you start really realizing all of the ramifications and what this is going to do for you and your life. And so I'm going to give you some friendly advice. In this period of time, the first 72 hours or so, you're adults, you can make up your mind about what you want to do, but I'm going to say avoid alcohol. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? When I was an officer, now this is back in the 90s when we were just starting to figure out this whole critical incident stress thing, and we're having one of our very first trainings on it when I'm at the Sheriff's Department. So we've got a room full of police officers, corrections officers, EMS people, firefighters, right? And we've got Susie, the social worker, who's leading the training. Great. So Susie, the social worker, you've had a critical incident. You shouldn't drink alcohol because, you know, you're very depressed right now. And alcohol is a depressant. And alcohol is just bad for you, so you shouldn't drink. And she's laying this on a whole room full of cops, corrections officers, firefighters, and EMS people. Well, I don't need to tell you what we were thinking about Susie, the social worker, right about then. We all wanted to wave at her, but we didn't want to use all of our fingers. Screw you, Susie. We're badasses. The first thing we're going to do is go to the bar and get drunk to kill the pain because we cope inappropriately with our stress. Yeah. Now, if Susie the social worker had told us the real reason you shouldn't drink in this period of time, we all probably would have listened to her. I'm going to tell you the real reason. College students, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but if you've been out on a bender, you got yourself really ripped up, really stinking drunk, you know how it messes with your sleep. I mean, you really don't sleep. First off, you wake up horribly dehydrated, probably multiple times during the night. And you toss and you turn, and you really can't sleep, and you're not dreaming right. It interferes with all of that stuff. Alcohol messes with your sleep cycle. What you need right now more than anything else is to have a normal sleep cycle. To sleep and let your subconscious brain start to process this terrible, painful thing that's happened. Because when your subconscious can process it first, then it makes it easier for you to get your head around it later. But if you don't do this, if you just go glug, glug, glug and kill the pain right off the bat, and don't let your mind work with it and process it, you're going to trap some ghosts. You're going to wind up with this crap stuck in your head for the rest of your life, and you don't want it there. I'm going to tell you that. If old Susie would have just told us this, we would have listened. Because I don't know anybody from this period of time that isn't dancing with some ghosts, because that's what we did. We just went and got drunk because it hurt, and we didn't want to deal with it. Glug, glug, glug. You know, somebody should have just told us, hey, you know, don't do that. wait at least 72 hours before you do that, because otherwise you're going to be dancing with ghosts for the next 20 years. Oh, that would have been nice to know. So I'm telling you, now you know. You're adults, you can make up your own mind. Just public service announcement, right? Secondary reactions. So that's where we get into the other longer lists here. They can occur within hours. They may be delayed for days, weeks, months, years. We saw guys coming back from Vietnam. You know, I mean, they weren't really allowed to talk about that war because it was a very unpopular war, and people treated Vietnam veterans horribly. They called them murderers and baby killers and all kinds of terrible names. You know, they didn't give them the respect that our veterans get nowadays. So these guys just went, you know, they tried to push it out of their minds and never ever talk about it and never ever think about it again. And what happened is 15, 20, 25 years later, they start popping symptoms out of the middle of nowhere. And they're all going like, well, what the hell's going on here? And they pushed it down so far and so deep, it took a while for them to pop, but they will pop sooner or later. It's just a matter of when. So symptoms occur in 4 main areas. So we got physical function. So if you look at your list here, there's just some stuff here. Okay, so psychosomatic illnesses like headaches, rashes, stomach problems, changes in appetite, tension, jumpiness, hyperventilation, upset stomach, extreme fatigue, you know, blah, blah, blah. I want to tell you something about these lists, okay? I picked these lists here because they fit nice in my handout as I was making it. You know, I had the first part of it, but I wanted to put some symptoms down too. And it fit nice. That's why I picked these lists. So what I do not want you to do is, you know, when you have a critical incident, because it's a when, not an if, whether you're a civilian or a police officer, you'll have a critical incident in your life, at least. Many probably. I don't want you saying, oh my God, there's something wrong with me because my symptom isn't on this list. That's okay, it's on somebody else's. If you Google critical incident stress, post-traumatic stress, you're going to come back with like 14 million lists and articles. And every one of those is going to have a different list. It's going to have stuff on it. So my point is, whatever you got going on is normal. Don't freak out just because it's not on my list, because I promise you it's on somebody else's. So physical, you got cognitive, that's your thinking. It messes with your head. Difficulty making decisions, confusion, disorientation, poor concentration, memory loss. There's that memory thing again, right? Inability to multitask, flashbacks. They can be visual, they can be auditory, they can actually be olfactory too, right? Flashbacks of the smell, so a certain smell will trigger. Emotional, the emotional realm, so you got your feelings. So you might have nightmares, you might feel grief, guilt, depression, anger, resentment, anxiety, fear. I mean, that's a long list there. We could go on. Second guessing yourself, losing your confidence, questioning your personal values, all of that kind of stuff. And then there's behavioral. Right, the outward behavior that you are exhibiting based on the physical, cognitive, and emotional. Now, if you look at this outward behavior, just some. Decreased job performance, withdrawing from friends or family, unexpected crying or laughing outbursts that are not connected to anything. Talkativeness, silence, hyperactive behavior, losing interest in things that you used to like to do. I mean, I think that you can see if you let those go on for very long, they're going to start to wreck your life. So this is where we're going to look at the fix. And another important thing I'm going to tell you right here, when you're going through a critical incident, after a critical incident, don't make any big life decisions right now. This is not the time to get married. It's not the time to get divorced. It's not the time to quit your job. It's not the time to take a job. It's not the time to start or finish anything. Sit, stay. Because you're not processing correctly right now. So don't do anything big. So, most symptoms, at least in theory, will lessen or resolve within 3 to 4 weeks. Now, if it was a fairly big critical incident, we're looking more at lessen than resolve. So around week 3, week 4, maybe about a month in, do a little self-assessment. And ask yourself, okay, what kinds of symptoms am I still experiencing? And am I feeling better now today than I was yesterday or last week? Even if it's just a millimeter better. Even if it's just a micron better. Is it a little better? And if the answer is yes, then stay on track. And stay on target, you're okay. If the answer is no, you're going to get stuck. You don't want to be there. Right? If the answer is no, you need to seek some help. This is what gets people stuck. This is what wrecks lives right here. You get stuck, you're not getting better, maybe you're even getting worse. Think of an infected wound. Because that's really what's going on, right? If you're not getting better and you're getting worse. Long-term problems may include divorce, alcoholism, job loss, suicide. Remember we said that a police officer is 3 times more likely to lose their life at their own hand than at the hand of a bad guy? And this is why. Because you get guys and gals that say, I don't need no stinking help. I can do this myself, but they can't. Sometimes you just can't. Sometimes it's too big. So after a while, they just hurt so much that they take themselves out. They just, the ultimate way of killing pain. The people who commit suicide don't want to die. They don't. People who commit suicide just want the pain to stop. And they're not able to turn it off any other way, so they pull the plug. That's what suicide is. This is somebody that's in a lot of pain that just wants the pain to stop. Talk about it. Detailed discussion of the incident is very, very important. You got to talk. Avoidance increases severity and recovery time. If you try to avoid it, if you try to run from it, it's just going to get worse. It's going to chase you. People who can talk come to understand what has happened and how it has changed them, and it puts them in a position to heal. I told you about my car wreck. One of the hardest things I ever did, after I pulled over and shook for 10 or 15 minutes, was put that car in gear and continue my trip. You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to turn around and go home. And never drive again. Talk to your family and close friends. Now, you don't have to give them all the blow-by-blows and all the deets. You don't probably even want to do that. But they do need to understand that this bad thing has happened to you and that it's affected you, and they need to be patient with you. Now, that said, a lot of well-intentioned family and friends will tell you, I'm there for you. You can talk to me anytime you need to. I'm here to help. No, they're not. Okay? I promise I'd be straight up. They're not. They think they are. They mean to be. But when they say that, they don't really understand what it is they're getting into or what they're signing up for. Because this could be a long process, and they don't get that. So what's going to happen is that you've got a clock ticking on this. That after a few weeks or a few months, then they're going to look askance at you and say, well, what's wrong with you? Haven't you gotten over that yet? No, I haven't. It was really bad. Right, so, just understand, you can talk to them, but understand that they don't get it. And the clock's ticking on how long you can really talk to them and how helpful they're going to be. So next up, you got your coworkers. The people with similar experiences, or maybe even who were there with you. They get it. Talking to coworkers is just, it's great stuff, because there is no clock here. My old partner from the sheriff's department was in Vietnam, and he did some nasty stuff over there. And I know he did some nasty stuff because every once in a while he needed to talk about it. So we'd buy a fifth of tequila. We're not having this conversation, right? We'd buy a fifth of tequila and a 12-pack of beer. And
Just a bad combo.
I know, right? We'd sit and he would talk and I would listen. And he just needed to get it out sometimes, and that was okay. This was 15, 20 years later. And it was okay. One of my coworkers one time dealt with, it was a terrible incident where a young man killed himself by driving himself into a building, and the whole car blew up. And long story made short, my colleague was the first one on the scene. And once the fire department got the fire put out and everything, you can run the license plate, but that doesn't mean that's who's driving the car. So he's telling me the story. Right? I'm coming through the squad room, I'm on my way to the lunch break, and he's got like 20 or 30 full-color, glossy 8x10 photos of the crime scene spread out all over the place. And I'm walking through the squad room, and he says to me, hey, have you seen the pictures of the guy that burned himself up in the car? No, I haven't. But I would really like to, I said. No, I didn't want to see it. I get a bad stomach. I throw up at the drop of a hat. And I'm thinking, oh, there goes lunch. But because I know what's going on here, all right, I know he wants to talk. So, all right, I'm there. There goes lunch. And what he told me as he's walking through the pictures is that he got to the body, and it was a crispy critter. I mean, it was burned beyond recognition. And it was rigid. All the muscles go rigid and everything. He said, so I needed to see who it was to make sure that it matched the license plate. So I tipped the body up, right? Rigid, crispy critter body. I tipped the body up, and I reached into his back pocket to get his wallet. Like, okay. I reached into his back pocket to get his wallet, and I can hear his voice start to break. I said, okay. I reached into his back pocket to get his wallet, and oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm like, what happened? I reached into his back pocket to get his wallet. I grabbed his wallet, but it wasn't his wallet. And you could hear the horror and revulsion in his voice. He said, I had the cheek of this man's ass in my hand. The body was burnt so badly. The meat, you know how meat slides right off a bone if you crock pot it or something and put it in the oven too long? And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't the wallet at all. And he's got this chunk of flesh in his hand. And you could just hear the horror and revulsion in his voice. I didn't have lunch that night. I stayed with him for a while, and we talked. And he told me that story about 5 or 10 different times, over and over and over again. Each time he'd fill in some blanks and leave out some other stuff. And so I heard the story really well. I saw all the pictures, and they were pukey. But at the end of the night, he felt way better. that he needed to talk to somebody. To clergy. And if you're a spiritual person, you may be in a spiritual crisis right about now. Right? Why would God let this happen? Huh? To a counselor. And some of this is just too big. And what happens is it's so big we can't see the forest for the trees. The trees are in our face. And we don't have any perspective. A counselor is not going to fix it for you. Nope. The counselor will pull you back away from the trees so you can see the forest, get some perspective, and give you the tools to fix it for yourself. This isn't going to be easy. You got to do the work. The counselor just gives you the tools. You got to do the work. Talk to yourself. Positive self-talk, okay? And I want to talk about that for a minute, because what can happen after a critical incident is people are really, really quick to beat up on themselves. They play the shoulda, coulda, woulda game. They berate themselves. They say, well, if I'd have done this or if I'd have done that, I was just stupid and I shouldn't have been there. You can't do that. Okay, that's going to eat you alive. Talk to yourself in a positive fashion. And this starts right now. From this point on, I want you to pay attention to how you speak to yourself. And I think probably a majority of you would be astonished to find that you say things to yourself critically, cruelly, that you would never ever think of saying to another human being. We all do. And until somebody had this conversation with me, I was too. I'd do something and say, that was stupid. Oh, what the hell was I thinking? Oh man, Whitaker, you gained weight, you're disgusting. Okay, no. The other day I even caught myself, because I've been working on this now for a few years, once it was brought to my attention. That's why I'm bringing it to yours, because it's important. Oh, it was a dumb thing to do, and I stopped myself. Nope, check that. And this is where it starts, check that. No, that was not a stupid thing to do. It was unmindful. I wasn't paying attention, but I will from now on. It was just unmindful. It wasn't stupid. So what I'm saying is, if you talk to yourself now in a way that you would never talk to somebody, stop it. Start paying attention to your self-talk now, so that when your world goes up on end, that you already know how to speak kindly to yourself, that you already know how to care for yourself with your words. Does that make sense? Start now. Start paying attention to the way you talk to yourself right now. I think you're going to be shocked. Physical and psychological injuries are similar. They really are. Both hurt like hell when they happen. And so we're back to our wound. Does that look painful? It looks very painful to me. I think that would hurt a lot.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Both hurt when they happen. And both will take time. They're going to take time to heal. And they're going to be painful as they heal. That's going to heal overnight. That's going to be months and months of healing. And while it's healing, hey, it could even get infected. It could break open again. Bad things could happen. It's kind of a cha-cha. Right? A couple steps forward, a couple steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's how the healing process goes, folks, whether it's physical or psychological. It's a process. It takes time. So this is where I say, when people have the audacity to get in your face and say, aren't you over that yet? You know what? You can be over them. They don't have a right to tell you that. They don't have a right to tell you how to heal, how to grieve, or how to move forward. So you tell them to shut the duck up.
Wow.
Both will heal with time and proper care. And give it time and proper care. It's a two-pronged approach here. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but time and proper care do. Keep your finger out of it. Quit picking at the scab. Quit berating yourself, bad-mouthing yourself, second-guessing yourself, and instead take care of yourself. Nurture yourself. Imagine that this happened to somebody that you care about or love. And how would you treat them? Treat yourself that way. Both are going to leave a scar. You are going to have a before and after mark in your life from that event. It's okay. It's going to leave a scar. It's going to leave a mark. And someday you'll look back on it and it won't hurt anymore. That's when you know it's healed, when it doesn't hurt anymore. But it's going to leave a mark. What you need to know, what you need to understand, is that whatever happens, whatever you experience, there is nothing wrong with you. It's normal. You are having a normal trauma experience. And, most importantly, you will recover. You make up your mind about it, get your finger out of the wound, treat yourself kindly, you will recover. Now, at the end of the semester, I know what you guys do. You take your course pack and you throw it in the trash. Or maybe if you're green, you'll put it in the recycle bin. But I'm going to ask you to do something for yourselves. Before you do that, before you throw that away, take those pages out of your course pack. Pages 30 through 35. Fold them in half, put them in an envelope, whatever you want to do, and stick them in the bottom of your sock drawer at home. Because at some point in time in your life, every single one of you will have a critical incident, whether you ever put a uniform on or not. Even as a civilian, some very bad shit is going to happen to you. Something that flips your life upside down, that is a significant emotional event that is going to change your worldview. It's going to happen because we're all human. And when it happens, at least now, you've got a starting point. You're going to say, yes, I remember that lecture, but I can't remember exactly what was said. And oh, wait, that handout's in my sock drawer. And it'll give you a starting point, okay? Would you do that for yourselves? Yeah? Okay.